Thank you so much for continuing to watch my interviews with military veterans organizations. I've said this before, I'll say it one more time, but a little bit differently because I want you to think differently about each organization that I bring on. My purpose for doing this is that there are a lot of different military veterans organizations around the country that are helping our veterans. And this is yet another one that I think is well worth a listen, which is Military Veterans Advocacy Group. And with me right now is Commander John Wells. He's retired from the United States Navy. Thank you so much for being on there. I appreciate it today, John. How are you?
Doing fine, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, oh no, you're absolutely welcome. The pleasure is mine because I want us to reach as many veterans as we can to help them. John, could you please tell us about what your organization does?
Sure. We litigate, legislate, and educate. And what does that mean? That means we go to Congress and beat up members of Congress and the U.S. Senate for veterans benefits. For example, we were active in getting herbicide benefits for many places included into the PACT Act, which was signed by President Biden in August of 2022. We litigate by suing the VA secretary, and we've done that several times. I tell him he's my favorite defendant, in order to get benefits for military vets. For example, in 2019, we won a case called Procopio versus Wilkie that resulted in the expansion of herbicide benefits to about 90,000 veterans that served in the bays, harbors, and territorial sea of South Vietnam. We educate through different types of outreaches, including podcasts like this, but as well, we do continuing legal education for attorneys on veterans law. We're working on a program to do tribal outreach for tribal attorneys on veterans law. We also sponsor what we call Veterans Get Outside Day, a national day where we ask all veterans to get outside, get away from the TV, and just enjoy Mother Nature.
Well, this is interesting. It's kind of like you all don't do any one specific thing. You really kind of find out, it's almost like you find out where the need is, and then you advocate for that. But of course, the biggest need is in benefits. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's been a lot of improvements in VA health system. For the most part, it no longer gives you a second chance to die for your country. But if you can't get access to that system, it can be the best system in the world. It doesn't matter. So our emphasis now is on the veterans benefit system. One of the things that we're looking hard at is the VA appeals, the Board of Veterans Appeals, which we found to be pretty unfriendly to veterans and to really be an inefficient use of resources. There's too many times a veteran has to apply and wait sometimes 5 or 10 years to get benefits. I think the longest was a Marine Sergeant Major, combat veteran, who took 46 years to get his benefits.
This is criminal. I hear about all this all the time when I do these interviews about how our veterans are treated after service, and I'm finding that they get treated worse after service than oftentimes the actual war zone that they were in, or the horrible conditions they might have been in while they were in service, and they're getting treated worse afterwards, and that's criminal. My question that comes to my mind is, do you find that it's bureaucracy that's treating them bad? Because I just heard from you just now is that, when they're in the military, they're dealing with their generals and their commanders and their captains, and they're dealing with other members of the service. But when they get out of the military, they're dealing with bureaucrats. They're dealing with people who are not in the military, or for the most part, are not in the military. They're dealing with elected officials that are in charge of voting in budgets that have, budgets for them, or they're dealing with bureaucrats that are the ones handling all the red tape in the VA or the other administrations. And is that a reason for the inefficiency? Am I on something there?
Well, that's part of it. And there are veterans that work within the VA system, and there are veterans that try to help veterans within the VA system, and even non-veterans. Some good people in there, but the problem is at the top. It's at the GS 14 senior executive service level where we run into the problem. And they are hard and fast bureaucrats, worried more about their budget, their next step increase, their next promotion, than they are about the individual veterans. You try to show these folks the error of their ways, and they just don't want to listen to it. I mean, we've got pictures, for example, of herbicide being dug up on Okinawa, and they say, well, gee, we still got no evidence that it's there. Well, yes, you do. You have visual evidence, and they just kind of ignore it. It's a real problem, and the VA is probably the worst bureaucracy that I've ever seen. I mean, it makes the IRS look efficient, and makes the IRS look helpful sometimes. They seem to go out of the way to make sure that they don't communicate with the individual veteran. That's where we come in and try to force Congress, or we'll go through the courts, to provide benefits for these folks. There's probably hundreds of thousands of people out there that have earned their benefits, and the VA just will not recognize it.
So do you all help individual veterans? Do they come to you and say, "Hey, I need this," and then you all help them directly? Are you all working with, veterans as a whole? Or I'm kind of trying to make that connection. Although you've kind of alluded to it, I'm trying for the listener to be more to shine the light on the process. So let's say a veteran that needs some help says, "Hey, I need this help." Do they come to you and then you all say, okay, that's a specific thing, or that is something we can help more veterans with that problem, and here's what we do, it's legislation? Or are there groups of veterans coming to you, or you all kind of are you all not looking for individual veterans for the ideas? You all are just aware of the issues and as a whole trying to help veterans. How is it working? Is it a funnel? Is it a more of an umbrella, or how does it work?
Suppose an umbrella would be the better description. We concentrate on the macro, the issues that are affecting hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of veterans. That doesn't mean we will turn individual veterans away. We will provide some counseling and put them in the right direction. We're not doing individual cases, haven't for a number of years. But what we will do is put them in touch with one of our member attorneys who will actually take their case on an appeal. Or if it's an initial claim, we'll tell them what they need to do to get that initial claim done. But the majority of our emphasis is in dealing with legislation or seeking judicial review of VA regulations to ensure that we cover the maximum amount of veterans.
This is unbelievable. So how do people help your organization? So it sounds to me like you're not working with specific veterans, although if one comes to you with an idea, you all use that single issue to help. Again, going back to that umbrella, to help many veterans. But how can people help your organization? How can people get more involved with you guys? How are you all raising money? What are you all doing to help the most amount of veterans as possible?
Well, there's a lot of ways they can help. We have a project on our website called Bill of the Week. You can go on there, check the Bill of the Week, and it will allow you to send a pre-written email, which you can modify, to your members of Congress and U.S. Senate. Okay, there's financially, we do have a number of raffles. We have one that drawings on November 3rd for a Henry repeating rifle with the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence on the stock, and we do those twice a year. We have other fundraisers, and you can just go on and make a donation. Financially is where we hurt. Now, we don't take a salary. I got a very small unpaid staff of 2 people, but myself and the rest of the board, those of us that go out and go to Congress and so on and so forth, we don't take a salary. But the problem is those park benches in Washington get pretty cold in the wintertime. So, we need some sort of a hotel, and we try to stay at the 3.5 to 4-star level. We don't go to the 5-star. We fly Southwest or whatever other cheap airline we can get, and try to expend the as little money as possible. Oftentimes, my law office will pay for the food bill, for example, or for Ubers, or we'll pay for it out of our own pocket. But I do have a payroll to meet. I do have um, transportation costs. For example, we're going to an event in February, which is going to involve every state director of Veterans Affairs. Cost us $3,000 for a booth there, and other places have other expenses. When our Veterans Get Outside Day, the last one was at Newport, Rhode Island. Beautiful area, beautiful day until a storm came in from the Atlantic Ocean, but you can't help that.
Right.
But it cost us about $25,000. So these are all real expenses that we have to meet, and if we can't meet them, we're either going to cut back on our services or we'll have to go out of business.
So I love not only your lean operation, I love the fact that you're operating in a streamlined method to be able to help veterans as efficiently but affordably as possible. I absolutely love the fact that you're not operating as a bureaucracy, that the same bureaucracy that you're fighting against. I love the fact on how you are doing this. So basically, a single veteran with an issue that you might not be aware of can come to you and you go, wow, we didn't know that was going on. You all might do some research, find out that it's affecting more, or in the event that you're paying attention to the budgets and how people are helped in the VA system, I don't want to use this term, but for a real to a simple analogy, it's almost like you guys are a lobbyist for veterans, and because you're operating kind of like a lobbyist. You're finding what the issues are. You're going and talking to politicians who are in charge of the money or the laws, and you're going to them and saying, "Hey, look, put this on your radar. We need to do something. And by the way, we have an idea what needs to be done about it." Is that kind of a okay way to I guess explain it?
Well, that's yeah, I think that captures it. But well, we are not lobbyists. Lobbyists get paid. We don't. We consider ourselves advocates, and we have checked with Congress to see if we had to register as lobbyists. And because we're not getting paid to go out and represent another group, for example, we don't have to register. So we're advocates, not lobbyists. Now, lobbyist is kind of a dirty word, I think, anyhow. So
Well,
we don't want
that's
to
why
get
I say,
confused
excuse
for
me for the analogy, but it was just kind of a way to help people understand.
that. Sure,
So you're not a lobbyist, you're an advocatist.
exactly.
I kind of made that word up as I spit it out, kind of thing. But basically, I love the fact that you're not trying to steer, a decision. I mean, ultimately, that's what you want done. If it guides policy or money in the direction of your veterans, but you basically try to say basically as an advocate, you're just shining the light on the problem, and you're telling people, hey, here's where the problem is, Mr. Congressman or whoever, or Mr. Bureaucrat, and here's what we need, kind of
Pretty
thing.
much.
Is there anything that you can point to that you guys have been able to do recently? And I know we got to wrap it up here in just a minute, but is there anything that you can point to that maybe that any problems that you all have solved recently that might come to mind for some people?
Well, we're pushing hard and hopefully going to get a committee hearing next month on a hyperbaric oxygen treatment for traumatic brain injury, which the VA doesn't seem to believe in, but everybody else does. And this is a non opioid treatment. The VA likes opioids, they're in bed with Big Pharma. You may have heard that before, but this is a
Absolutely.
non opioid treatment. It's We've been able to garner a bunch of co-sponsors. It's got through the subcommittee level, and we're hoping to get a committee hearing on it in the House in November. That leaves us with the Senate, and we've negotiated with some of the folks in the Senate to pick the bill up when it comes there and do what they call a hotline or unanimous consent, which will um, basically give all senators a period of time, usually a couple of days, to either say yay or nay. If they say nay, it does kill the bill. But most of those times, in bills like this, most of the time they all say yay. So we have hopes that we'll get it through the end of this session. If not, we'll be back next year with that and the rest of our legislative agenda. We were successful in getting a congressional gold medal for Commander Everett Alvarez, USN retired, and Everett Alvarez was the first prisoner of war held by the North Vietnamese. He was shot down in August of 1964. Uh, over North Vietnam. As a result, he was doing a strike post Gulf of Tonkin incident, and he set the standard for the rest of the POWs to follow. So he's a good man. He's a member of our organization, and that has passed the House and has now got 67 senators supporting it in the Senate. So it's more than enough to pass it.
How many years in a POW camp and he's still alive?
Well, he went in 64, got out in 73, so a better part of 9 years.
Wow.
Still
Imagine
alive, still spry in his 80s, and just one heck of a good guy. I've been able to meet him a couple of times, and it's really an honor to meet him.
can only imagine the torture that he went through, and you guys are getting him his medal that he justly deserves. Do you all have any fundraisers, anything coming up, any calls to action that you want to get out there that people will want to can help you with, or any ways they can be involved with you guys? How can they support your organization with any events coming up or otherwise?
Well, I'm not sure when you're going to publish. November 3rd will be the drawing for our rifle raffle. After that, we'll be doing an end of the year fundraiser on Facebook, and you can follow us on Facebook and make a donation there, or go directly to our website. We also have one item for sale. It's called Beyond the Territorial Sea, and it's very limited. It's the only one it's going to affect is people that were in the Blue Water Navy that were not covered by the Procopio decision. But just feel free to jump on our website. It's only a $35 membership fee. Uh, right now, we have a special on until the end of the year, $30. And join us or make a donation. Anything
Awesome.
helps.
Commander John Wells, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you for having me.
well, I want to thank you for what you're doing for all veterans. And I want to thank the audience for not only listening, but I also want to thank you in advance for please sharing not only this interview, but sharing the podcast that this is a part of as a way to be able to help other veterans. Because let's face it, if we don't show our civilian population that are thinking about military service that they're going to get help after military service, then we're not helping them much either at all unless we're showing them our support. And that's what this interview does, help other veterans by sharing. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and see you on the next interview.
Yes, sir. Thank you.